Hi, I'm Donnie Vie. You're listening to Cobras and Fire, and hopefully not Cobras on Fire, because that would be a pretty dangerous thing out there.
I'd like to welcome back to the program the former lead singer of Enuff Z Nuff, Donnie Vie. Donnie, it's been about a year and a half since we talked. I really enjoyed our chat. Your record, The Beautiful Things, had just come out at that time. That's what we were talking about. But before we get too far into it, how are you, Donnie?
Oh, pretty good for my age. Not bad, yeah. For an old man, I've survived,
Now, how old are you going to claim you are this time?
I'll be 55 next month.
I think I went back and listened to our interview just in prep today to make sure it didn't double up. I think you just shaved 19 years off your age from the last time we talked.
Oh, yeah, well, I was older then. Yeah, that's, things happen, It's my time machine that's broken now. The teleport still works a little bit, but sometimes I show up inside out, so that's no good either.
Before we get into everything that I wanted to talk to you on, since I mentioned The Beautiful Things, you kind of got caught up just when that was about to be released, was when all that Pledge music mess kind of got dropped on a bunch of artists. You were able to kind of get through it. Any insight as to, from what I understand, most of you, the pledgers got what they paid for and everything, and the record did eventually come out.
Yeah, I got through it. Anybody can get through it as long as you got about 40 grand.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I got through it. We made it. We managed to, I did a deal with Deco and record label, and one of the main reasons that I had done that originally was to get those CDs and stuff for the fans that did pledge, to get those at like a low cost so that I could get those out to people. And, it was harder for me to unwrap the damn CDs. And so open them things up. Those are not so easily. They don't have that little thing like the cigarette package where you just pull that little that little dilly. I had to do all that, and I was sick as fuck too doing that. It was like we're talking thousands of CDs, to take out of the box, take out of the wrapper, sign them, and then they all had to, of course, be packaged. We had to get the mailing list and everything from Pledge, which was difficult getting a hold of those guys at all after that point.
Right.
And, so we managed to get the mailing list, and so like I said, packaged, addressed, postage. That was a hell of a lot of we actually did that physically within the family. Me and my two sisters and my little nephew, and we're all just unsealing them damn things and signing them and getting them out there. It's still like 2 or 3 people that are still bitching, and it's sometimes it's hard for the postman to find that cornfield. You know what I mean? So no, when they come back, we just try it again, and I try to do as best as I can. And my family, I've now got management and like a pretty good street team, and just acquired legal and a lot of stuff that I really needed for years. I kind of just acquired in the last few weeks with my kind of like blasting things out there that I felt needed to be done. I had no other way of getting something done. There's some things needed to be done. It just for one reason or another, and they're getting done now.
Sure. With going back a little bit, when we talked the first time, you were actually kind of just now kind of feeling comfortable about at that time, like I said, about 2 years ago, a year and a half or whatever. When you started making the record Beautiful Things, you mentioned it when we talked that you were just starting to get back to that place where you thought music could be a healthy thing for you again. I'm assuming that's just kind of continued at that point, and maybe that's why a lot of these frustrations with your legacy or whatever you want to call it started to manifest on Facebook. Yes.
Well, yeah. It's it's not necessarily the situation itself. Some of them were. It's the being on the pay no mind list and just the big things getting done that without any acknowledgement or any, approval or anything on a lot of things, which as, being the songwriter and, my lead vocals, I do believe had a lot to do with, the impact of the band and why there's people like Steven Tyler, Robert Plant, Kiss, and guys like that, that acknowledge and respect the music and the records and stuff. And, it's like, how can you just pay me no mind whatsoever? And, I'm getting like movie trailers. There's movies out now with some of my songs that are just, there's no licensing, there's no protection, there's no nothing. And, that's against the law. But when you don't have any legal, it's like the ends don't justify the means, because if you take each one of these individual situations and it's like, we're talking, I'll tell you, I'm not ashamed to say it's terrible, but I've never received one penny in my whole career for any royalties or record sales or anything. And I do know that somewhere down the line, I'm not saying that it was the former bandmates or anything. I don't think he's made anything either. I think it's, but I do know there's,
he's wearing the same clothes the last 10 years. Yeah, I thought you'd like that one.
I would hate to be the inseam of those pants.
Oh, man.
but somewhere along the line, when you're talking over millions records,
mm-hmm.
Over millions of records, somebody made something. You know what I mean? And so, just little things like that. It's not like I was saying, the men's don't justify the means to go after one specific situation or something with, the legal costs money. And it's like they won't take on a whole bulk of things at one time. They want to be specific. Where can we start with this and that? And you got to retain those fuckers. And law legal is not cheap. I should have studied hard in school. I could have done that shit myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it does seem we have a culture of basically taking advantage of artists, and maybe that sounds a little like a softball question for you, but we're kind of past the point where I at least doesn't it, I don't know how to say this, Donnie, the counter argument to what you're saying is going to be, well, what did you sign? Why didn't you protect your stuff? And a lot of this stuff for the bands that come out of this a little cleaner than artists like yourself, because this happens on all scales of success. Right. Like, it seems to be a lot to do with how lucky you are to end up working with people who aren't fucking shysters.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's the thing. And a lot of like the signing this and that. It's like my policy is I'll sign anything. You know what I mean? I think it's an autograph. You just hand it to me. No, but
I want to rethink that.
No, there was management, and there was other things that were paying big money to protect and stuff, and then it's just the way things started going with the band and the business. I mean, we went into our first record deal being sued for over $1 million by a former manager that put in a lot of money and stuff to get us going, recording and stuff, and but we were kind of a toy for that guy, and this, it's been a clusterfuck since day one. And just went into other things like bankruptcies and things like that. And so, it's like, it's a sailor couldn't untie a lot of these knots, and having, having like all that legal documentation and stuff to be able to obtain this years later, cause I'm not a businessman. I'm starting to try to become one, but I've never been a businessman. I'm like, I'm an artist, and I come from the streets and clawed and scratched. And then there was certain things where you expect for the positions that they're holding and what you're sharing is who would expect that people wouldn't be looking out, that for I'm not saying that people didn't look out for our best interest. It's just to be able to obtain all these contracts and things, because everything's digital nowadays. All that back then, and a lot of that stuff was on paper, and to get your hands on that stuff, it's ridiculous. But as far as record companies and different things like that, publishing and deals and stuff like that. That's one thing. It's when you have internal fuckery going on. That's where that's like inexcusable as far as I'm concerned. I mean,
Like what? What do you mean by internal fuckery?
well, just things like a lot of re-releases and so their deals done and just I'm not going to go into too many details, but when you're just on the pay no mind list where there's somebody just assumes, well, hey, you were a big piece of shit. You fucking did drugs and this and that, so you don't deserve this and that. I deserve it because I've been out working and stuff like that. Well, you've been out working what? You've been, you're working on the reputation, the integrity of our, little legacy. I'm not saying only legacy. I don't know how many numbers of this and that you define legacy, but as far as I'm concerned, my legacy and our legacy and stuff like that's your base, your foundation to operate on. And, just to, while you're in rehab, I decided to go and, purchase the, trademark things and stuff like that. So that I'm legally and the only one entitled to do certain things. And, there's, like I'm saying, there's business is being, is transactions going down and without any, like say a song called Fly High Michelle, that song right there, it's like, there's a lot of songs that split the credit, but a lot of that is, you do a lot of that for, to share because, to have partners and just wanting somebody to love you,
Mm-hmm.
for the return, the how much you appreciate and having somebody there with you for all the good and bad things that you've done in your life. And, just stuff like that, it's just like, this is my name on some of these things. And it's like, well, what the fuck is this thing? What is that thing? Why would this exist without me having no knowledge or anything of that, and I'm not, like I said, I won't go into details, but there's a few things that.
Well, can you give us one specific, like where something was used?
Yeah, well, there was some shitty movie. I don't know what it's called, but somebody sent me a trailer to the movie, and there's not me with a bit part in it that comes out of the wall singing Fly High Michelle, and it's in a movie, and and I'm like, it's one thing also to, you just can't just retrack it or something like that. And just, especially when it's somebody else's song, there's licensing issues and things like that. But then I hear I'm like, wait, I hear the Juno 6, my old Juno 6 patch that starts out Fly High Michelle. I'm like, well, that's the original. And then it kicks in and it's like, well, this is the original song, and then there's somebody singing over it, which anybody can cover your material.
Yeah.
Anybody can, cover bands and stuff like that. Anybody can do that. But this isn't a matter of that. This is a matter of doing business. And if somebody wants to cover your material and do business with it, where it's whatever gain that their personal gain or business gain or something like is benefiting, or it's an asset, you can't just take, hell, I'll go fucking take Sgt. Pepper's record. I'll sing over the goddamn vocals, and we'll put it in a movie. Here's Donnie Vie, the Lennon McCartney V. You know what I mean? And you just can't do stuff like that. Well, that's one example, and that's all as far as into that.
But when you say someone was singing it, you seem to be dancing around it, and I'll let you do that. I'm not going to push you too far on that. Well, are we talking about Chip?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Chip is basically he licensed the song to a movie or something like that, but it's a version where he's singing it and not you.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he made any money from it, because judging by what I've seen of the movie, I don't imagine anybody made any money off of that. That's but it's still
there's no more money in porn.
Yeah, that's not a matter of none of these things that I'm discussing or been, everybody calls it these crazy rants or whatever the hell that none of this stuff am I talking about, financial or anything like that. I'm on principle here, and I don't wish anything bad. I want to love him and still do love him. You know what I mean? And, but, let's, show the love back, let's not get carried away with, why you're, what you think you're entitled to, this sense of entitlement and a few things of just, personal agenda. These songs, I consider these songs when I write them, these aren't mine, these aren't his, these aren't anybody, these belong to the fans. You know what I mean? These songs belong to the fans.
Yeah,
that's what
absolutely.
they're written for. And I never set out to be a rock star or rich or famous or anything like that. What I set out to do was, since I was little, is I want to write some stuff that has some impact on me, on other people, like these songs that I hear that have affected me in my life. That music is very heavily affects people. It's a difference between a bad day and a good day, or just the way you feel about things. And it's like my goal was just to write and sing something that one day that would be that could be held in the same regards as something that impacted me. Some of these bigger artists and some of these great records that I grew up listening to, and from I believe that I have done that. When you got guys like Steven Tyler or somebody, or Metallica or something like that are acknowledging your stuff in like Rolling Stone magazine or something, I think that's a good indication that you've done something to that extent. And as far as rock starism and things like that and money, that gave me a lot of anxiety, and a lot of the shit in the business and everything and the situations we were always in was a lot of anxiety. And I don't know if I subconsciously would destroy it or whatever, but I just definitely seen that it wasn't like it was, setting my bank account on fire or anything like that. So, I always would, I did a lot of hanging with these fans. I've hung out with 500 people at a time sometimes. You know what I mean? I literally.
I get it. Yeah. I mean, I haven't done it, but I've witnessed. I might have been one of those 500 people at some point. Who knows?
Oh, I hope so. And if you were, I hope that you were careful. Or you might have some children out there you don't know about.
If they do, then like you said, I don't know about them. So
excuse me. There's some beeps coming in. There's somebody trying to call me from Indiana, but that can wait. It's probably telemarketer or something. I don't know why telemarketers in Indiana would be calling me, but I'll get back to it.
The random bots just pick any kind of area code. There is no rhyme or reason. They're probably it's probably a robot in California or something like that. But
yeah, it's back up to yours again. Maybe it's one of those dick pics I just sent out to random numbers or something.
Nice.
The return. Oh, just kidding.
Make sure you have mine saved. So I'll look forward to that when we're done talking here.
I'll just blow you a kiss. I'll blow you a kiss. You don't have to worry about that.
If it's all right with you, I'd like to back up a little bit and maybe we talk about how you kind of end up in this situation where things like this can happen. I think you've been in and out of the band a couple times, right? Enuff Z Nuff I'm talking about.
Yeah.
How is it that you ended up, did you quit? Were you fired? What was the process there?
No, the first time that I left, it was we got off a huge arena tour, outdoor shed tour, and just one thing, compiled, this throughout a lot of the years. I was like slapping Band-Aids on things, trying to just keep vertical and keep, being able to do what I'm doing. And, you don't really get a chance to, or even the, the will to do the work that you need to do to get some of these issues handled. And, it just got to a point where I was going to die, had I not taken, I said, we're playing.
Yep.
we're playing places like, fucking Tulsa, Oklahoma on a Tuesday and in a pool hall for 50, 60 people. And then, the next night it's here, it's there, and there's tours that I said, hey, listen, we need to take a break. And this isn't really anything that's furthering our careers right now. I said, and we need to take a break. And, and then it's just that it's like I said nothing. And it's like, you get a week later, hey, we're going blah, blah, blah. We're going out. Well, so there's another club tour that we just got off through headlining these places and opening up for the great Eric Martin, and I was like, well, what did I just say? And Johnny Monaco had been in the band for like 10 years at that point. And, he's a great singer and he could deliver these songs, in a pretty good fashion. Well, as soon as the guy that managed Jay Lane was kind of a little bit of somewhat managing, lending his management skills to the band. I was on the phone, we're on a three-way, and the guy's like, well, Chip, just go out without him, have Johnny Monaco sing. And I hear Chip's like, could I do that? And he's like, yeah, you can do that. He goes, oh, okay. And that was in a way he went, and we're talking 6 years later, I just got married too. And it was all about, I needed to take this break. And then after I started, I didn't necessarily get super healthy yet. I got off a lot of the stuff that I was on at that time. I started getting on other things, like crystal meth and shit like that. But I wiped a lot of that out, and it wasn't until I put that back out there. It's like, hey, well, you're continuing to do this. I said, I'm ready to come back and do some shows, and but that wasn't received or welcomed for 6 years until for whatever reason, I'm a handful on this and that is difficult to work. Well, I'm the guy. You know what I mean? And so people want to, excuse me, people want to see the guy, and so I was like, well, I'll get back out there. But it wasn't until there was like a VH1 approached the band with, for a special, they were doing like a game show of, damn these fucking
Bands on the Run.
Yeah, Bands on the Run. And that's
I watched most of that show. What did you guys do on that?
We, it's like it was a competition where you get
I know the show. I just well, whatever. Go ahead. I'll let you explain.
Yeah, we played a concert. We had to go out and peddle our wares. We had to sell things. We had like 24 hours to promote a show and put bodies in there. Whoever generated the most money or the most the most revenue and successful concert, won that particular show. We did that. We were up against whoever that band was that I Want Candy.
Romeo or something like that. I don't know
what their name is, but they're good. They were great. We did win that thing, but I mean, it took something like that to for somebody to call me back where it was completely somebody, they couldn't do that without me. So
now, would Chip call you? And I ask only because I would like you to impersonate the phone call in Chip's voice.
Hey, little brother, how's it going? How you been? Blah 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 blah. This and that, and blah blah blah, and real quickly into the reason my call is VH1 is called and said offering this thing and be a VH1 special and. It only was actually a pilot or something. And,
I love your impression of him, by the way.
Well, what came along with that idea was also there was a guy. Jesus Christ, man, he's fucking. There was a guy that. Do you hear those beeps?
No, so they're not affecting me
good.
at all.
Well, all right, well then I won't even acknowledge them.
Okay.
Well, it was some guy was going to put money in. To put the band back in the studio, make a new record. Well, I was like, and that was going to be supposedly the original band. Obviously, Derek had passed away, so he wasn't going to be in that. But, the four of us, Vic, me, Chip, and Johnny Monaco, and I was like, all right, well, I would like that to be a band effort where everybody's, applying all of their skills and their talents, because that Vic had later had started writing and singing, and which I heard some stuff that he had sent me, and if that is truly him, I thought was pretty good.
Okay.
And Johnny Monaco, he's a writer and a singer, and Chip is a writer and a singer, and I said, well, let's not. I don't want to go through my computer now with all my my ideas and demos and stuff, and just listen through that, and it'd be another one of those deals like it had been for so many years. I wanted to do this as a band effort, and well, one thing led to another, and that I wasn't in the best shape again as far as substance and stuff, but however, that I had no say so in the direction or the production, the producing of that first effort. And
what record was that? What album would that have been?
That was the beginning of the Dissonance experience. And what ended up happening was it was going through my computer and digging out demos and stuff like that. And so there was a few things that went down. I was fucked up, and it wasn't what it turned out to be, which I later found out was a kind of a scam of, they were going to try half a record with me and half a record with Johnny Monaco. And I found that out in a very weird accident when I was trying to get the daily roughs of the musical tracks that we had done the night before, and so I could write lyrics and get my vocals together, and beating on the door. Finally had the fucking security let me in the Chip's room to get. He was in a suite. I was in some little room. He was in a suite. He's back in the bedroom behind the living room. And finally, I go, man, I need the daily CD, so I can write the lyrics. So we're going to sing tomorrow. And hands me another one and says, New Enuff's Enough. I pop it in, and it's a song I never heard before with Johnny Monaco singing. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then I caught on. I said, I get it. And it just turned into a big blow up, and I was like, fuck this. I'm going home. And by the end of that situation, I was, my ex-wife found me pushing a fucking grocery cart down the street like a bum, with what's left of my belongings in it, and going to get my meds from Walgreens and stuff. And, but it was like, I went home, and then I hear through the grapevine that something is going to be released called Lost in Vegas, which I was there. I knew what would be on that.
And I was like, what year about is this then?
We're talking 2007 or 8, probably 8 at that time. And I was like, well, I haven't been in the band in 6 years, and then they're going to hear this. People are going to hear this record if it gets released, and that's going to be what people are going to think that that's all I had to offer. You know what I mean? Since in all of that time, and I was like, that can't happen because that's not the truth. And so, I heard about that, and so what happened was I was splitting up with my wife at that time and had a new girlfriend, and just went into this writing spurt and wrote most of that Dissonance record that you hear on the actual record, and went out there, took a fucking bus and a train and got to Vegas on my own. And I went in there with the guy that owned the studio. He also played drums on it and co-produced it. And, like Dissonance, Altered States, Joni Lynn, Lazy Daisy, all these great Rollaway, Code Red, all these great songs. And we tracked them all, the two of us. And then Jakey Lee came in and played some guitar and, reinforced my guitar parts and stuff with a better tones, because I'm a hack, but I played guitar on everything after Derek left, except for a few guest spots. Okay. But I needed that, it was going to be it was really
I know what you're saying there. Yeah. You need that, that extra.
Yeah. It was sounding real good with Jake. And then, and then Chip came out and replayed the bass to these songs. And so there's the Dissonance record, which was, as I consider, the last Enuff Z Nuff record that we had made in the studio. There was something else released afterwards with that was very questionable, with some old demos and things that got polished up, and a few Chip's things, it was called Question Mark, because that's what I said we call it. I said it's Question Mark. Who knows what the fuck this is? But that was the last thing. And then I get a copy of this. Finally, get a copy of this, and there's songs on it that I've never heard before. There's I'm not on them. I didn't ever heard them before. I'm not singing them, and also I look at the writer's credit, and it says all songs written by Enuff Z Nuff. I'm like, this is fucked up. And then that guy that put the money in, now he did put some money in, but it was his doings, basically, that cock-blocked anything good happening there in those sessions. The best things we had were, there was 2 songs that made it, were a song of mine called Fine Line. There was another song that was an idea from the past that was called High. So we redid that, and some other songs, Chicago, which Chip sings, and I purposely wanted him to sing that. I wrote the lyrics for it, have him, and we split the music and stuff. But this is all that was originally in there, and that session for as a result of these business calls and these production calls, this guy doesn't play it. He doesn't even play the guitar, and he's producing this thing. And I'm like, he got stuff like some shitty version of When Doves Cry that I couldn't understand. I'm like, well, if you're insisting on Doves Cry, let's do a version of it that would make sense and make it our own and stuff. And just, I had no say so in any of this stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck is, this isn't anything that I signed on to do. But then it says all songs written by Enuff Z Nuff. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? So that's, in other words, take my name off of writing that whole record. And now it's written by whoever the fuck was in that band at the time, No, and then they went and shopped and got we shopped and got a Japanese record deal with like a 20 grand advance, which is not that much, but it was something, to help pay some stuff. Yeah. And I got a check for $1,000. You know what I mean? And all the rest of this, I don't know where it went. I know the studio, the owner and producer and plays the drums and stuff, didn't get anything. And he fucking held that against me for years. Like that, I had something to do with that. We cleared that up since then. And it's like, where did the rest of this fucking money go? And, and these guys taking it and to repay his money that he had spent. Well, your money that you had spent, you spent it on something that you fucked up. You fucked that all up. So you spent your money on something, you made these judgment calls. You made this, you made it be that. And so now this is something different. This is not Lost in Vegas. This is Dissonance record. Yep. This is a different whole thing where I get $1,000, you know what I mean? And so, like everything else, I just wanted to be back out playing. I wanted to see the fans again. I wanted to be in, out doing my thing. And hold on 1 second. Oh, so you let things slide and get back out there and start performing again. And we went out and started to support this record, went to Japan, started doing some things in the UK and the States. And I had an attitude doing this stuff. I fucking had an attitude. I was like, and the biggest attitude I had was that we're talking years later now. We're at like 2013.
Okay.
And
thank you.
Now we're performing in UK and stuff. And I'm like, I have these new guys. I have this guy, Tori, and he's a great artist. He writes and has his own records and stuff. And I got this other guy, Randy Scott, playing drums. And these guys are artists. These guys, made records and things. And I'm like, I want to go in the studio and make a new record. I want to make a new Enuff Z Nuff record. You guys are making as much as I do out here. You're getting merchandise money. You're on the record cover. There's your face and stuff. You're not on the records. I want to make a new record that is a band and stuff. And that kind of fell on deaf ears. And then to the point, well, at least can we rehearse and not be playing the same goddamn 20 songs that we've been since 1990. You know what I mean? We're playing the same fucking songs. And so there was a big wedge. It was me versus them because I had an attitude. They had an attitude about me. They insisted that I was all fucked up and doing cocaine, which I was not at that time. You know, I was just on medication, this and that, and it's just like I had an attitude. They had an attitude, and my attitude was, I don't think that what we're doing here is what we stand for. I don't think that we're being the special magical band that we were known to be, and we got all these great records. Why aren't we not playing these songs? You know, these fans that are coming to see us. It's like they come in. This is the 5th, 10th time they've seen us. They're getting the same damn songs, you know. And I'm not getting into it anymore. I'm not into it. I look at the set list and I'm like, the fuck, you know what I mean? It's the same stupid shit. And so there was an attitude with that, and it telegraphed. It telegraphed through personally with us, me between the band, and it also telegraphed to the crowd. Started telegraphing to the audience, and I'm like, well, if it's going to be me versus you, then you guys would come out and get the show started, and I'll come out like Big Twist, you know, Big Twist and the Mellow Fellows. I'll come out after once you guys play the 2001 Space Odyssey, then I'll come out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, you know, all my glory if it's going to be that, you know. And it's just one thing led to another. There was one show where I ended up getting my ass kicked by the club owner, who was a motorcycle gang dude out there, like a Hell's Angel or whatever the fuck they were. And those guys stood right there, and they watched it happen, and didn't do shit. And then the guy strangled me up against the wall and stuff, and my throat is all swelled up and closing. And I'm like, you know, I knew that I could get through this next 14 in a row. There was one day off, and that was one that they had settled where I had to just do an acoustic performance solo in the one day off, you know. And so all these dates, I knew I could get through it, but I want to go to the hospital. I want to make sure that I'm not ruining something, because when at the end of the day, you know, something happens to my pipes and I look like a whole different guy. I look like a different guy. I'm just some shit talk troublemaker then, you know, without pipes. And, you know, and that's my life, and that's what I need. I need to sing my songs when I write them, because that's a lot has to do with that, you know. And so that fell on deaf ears, and it was like, this is the level of this is so ridiculous and so absurd. And it's, you know, it's me versus guys. And once again, I'm looking like the bad guy, and I'm like, but I'm not the bad guy. I'm trying to be the good guy. I'm trying to do something that's powerful, something that makes sense for me being out there, you know, in these disheartening situations, you know, playing to 50, 60 people, some rooms, some nights it was really good, some nights not. And, you know, and with my addictions and weaknesses and stuff, is I'm just out here killing myself for nothing, and we're not doing anything special. And you know, and one thing led to another, and then I just, you know, I insisted, well, instead of when we get home after all this tour and all this work and all this bullshit between us, you know, and you're going to hand me $500 or something like that for all these dates, I said, I want, you know, whatever we're making that night, I want a fourth of that before I walk on stage. You know, if there's budget money and there's things that need to be paid for this and that, well, figure out how to do that, but I want a quarter of the fucking money, seeing as how I wrote the songs, I'm singing the songs, I'm the guy that's killing myself for all this shit. So you pay me before we go on. All this stuff caused big attitudes. And by the end of it, by the end of that tour there, it was, they quit me.
They quit you. They fired you.
The band quit me. Right. They just went back. They continued to go on without me, and it was disheartening. It was depressing. And so I went to Las Vegas, and I just sat there with a laptop and made a record that, at least the songs I believed in, the production quality was very low because I couldn't mix peanut butter and jelly. You know what I mean? And so here I'm trying to make a record here I'm pirating software, pirating this and that, you know, just to get things done, and, you know, going through a lot of shit. We had a situation with a girl that was very sick, and it was still things I can't discuss. There's details about that I'll never be able to discuss, and just a lot of crazy shit. And that's where it ended, and that's where it left off. And from there on in, there's you know, I mean, then I went to, I got arrested. I went and did one little solo acoustic tour on my own. After we got back from there, I went into rehab and and went through a nice 2-month rehab thing. And I got off these opiate maintenance drugs that I was on for all these years. Cause you can't, those things, man,
we're learning a lot about those lately, aren't we? At least as far as the public.
Suboxone and methadone and stuff. This shit. Now I hadn't done heroin in like 10 years or so, even longer than that, since before I was, since I left the first time in 2001, I hadn't done any heroin or anything like that. It was always these maintenance drugs, and continuing to whittle it down. But you get to like a Suboxone, and I had one Suboxone strip. I'm prescribed 3 a day. took one strip and I would cut it up into 8 pieces, and one of those little eighths would do the job. I could get through the day. I'd whittled myself down, and but without that one little teeny piece, it's full blown withdrawal, and that stuff is in your bones. And we're talking, when I did finally go through all of that, we're looking at probably 40 days of not a wink of sleep and just agony and just torture. And I don't know if you know anything about opioid withdrawals, but it's the worst thing you could possibly imagine.
Not firsthand, no.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm practicing with a shotgun without bullets in it, practicing to see what it entails, the act of that yourself, and anybody says that that's a coward's way out, they've never fucking sat there with that situation. But I ended up taking a couple of handfuls of pills, trying to kill myself, and I virtually ended up in this rehab thing. And when I got out of that, I was all dressed up with no place to go, and prematurely I went back out on an acoustic tour with my buddy Bez, and my spirit was just gone. I had no spirit, I had no energy. I didn't like playing the songs, I didn't like doing anything. And when I came back from that, on my way into Chicago, I was arrested by customs for some old warrant for manufacturing methamphetamine, which I'm not going to lie, I did. But I mean, I never sold drugs. I never.
I was making it for myself.
This was just practical and efficiency.
Yeah, save some money. For a guy man. It's like rolling your own cigarettes, right?
Yeah, for a guy that's doing this fucking drug, it's like, well, I can make it. Okay, well, let's do that. And so it was. One thing led to another. There was a house fire. I never been charged with anything. People claim that was my making of them. You picture me with the chef hat on and the apron and stuff, my world's greatest
a cigarette
dad,
in your mouth, and you're making some hamburger helper. And
my barbecue world's greatest dad apron or something out there. And that was it wasn't that kind of method of doing it. It was just it was like household items and things you could buy legally, and to make like it's called the shake and bake thing. But there was something.
I don't want to get you in any trouble here.
No, I mean, my life's an open book. I don't deny anything. I live and I learn from things, and I try to use these things that I've gone through, because I do a lot of service work and a lot of things with a lot of people personally on 1-to-1 in my PM and stuff, and that's well known that I do that. I mean, everything is from the heart, and everything is in concern. And it always was, even when I was all fucked up, I wrote a lot of these songs from dark places, but, the hopes was, I didn't think there's hope for me, but there's hope that I can get this out there, and somebody, empathy, and somebody can realize they're not alone, and here's how you can get through some stuff and shit like that. And I mean, I'd like to make a small book of the collection of these, of letters and messages that I've gotten from, over 100 people literally saved their life, literally was going to end their life this day or that day, and then the thousands of you were the soundtrack, you affected my life in such a positive way and stuff. And so that's where how can you put a price tag on one life and the ripple effect of what that guy's life he saved? I'm not the guy that, I have run into a fire to save a dog before. I have gone in there, almost fucking
That might be a pet might be the only thing. And probably, I guess my wife
melted my shoes. Melted my shoes.
Well, I'm kind of glad you kind of got to the light at the end of the tunnel there. That was, I was kind of letting you go a little bit because look, not to minimize the struggles of drug addiction because that shit's real. But to pull it back a little bit, where I was trying to get to with that is that with Enuff Z Nuff, your last departure was, or either time, was there we're assigning away? I assume you had some legal entitlement to the songs you wrote, those kind of things. Like, was there some kind of like who owns the name even? I mean, how did that end up being that you have no role in that?
Those were things that I hadn't even really considered or came to my mind. I never figured that was something that I needed to worry about of like who owns the name. What
about the songs? I mean, going all the way back to your first record in '89, was there something there? We
had an LLC, the company. It started off with Enuff Z Nuff songs or Enuff Z Nuff in Corp that we had to when we filed that big bankruptcy to get out of Echo Atlantic, that had to dissolve and start a new one, was called Roving Gypsies. But everything was in place there. Like, I'm CEO, president of that. I own them in, the lion's share. This stuff had all been dissolved and terminated without my knowledge. And so this was able to be done. And, but it never crossed my mind that at least internally that I had anything to worry about with that.
Of course. Like, no, that part I understand. But like, there had to be some kind of paperwork going back and forth that eventually took you out of it with,
Well, it's like Hansel and Gretel. Try to find these little pieces of popcorn that you left in crumbs they left on the way that, it's,
sure.
It's like a lot of this stuff and a lot of these details and the masters and the contacts and the paperwork and the this and that, my life didn't lend itself to, I don't even have any memorabilia. I didn't care about any of that stuff, but I was like on the streets a lot. I was living from here to there. And so all that stuff, I realistically and being practical to protect all of this stuff, I felt, that let the pack rat, my brother, handle all of this shit, and he did. And, but, keep it for safekeeping. This was my brother, you know what I mean? During this time and stuff like that. And so, there's all things did not work out for me so well. And like I said, I'm not a businessman. And
so when you say brother, you're talking about Chip. You kind of trusted him to kind of handle stuff.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't you think that'd be a safe place to keep the stuff if you know that a trunk of your car, if your car is probably going to get impounded, next week or something like that. That shit's not safe there. And it's just like the '85 record. We were able to put that out after the Echo thing. Or the Atlantic or Arista thing, we were able to release that because that master tape was actually propping up one corner of Chip's couch. You know what I mean? In his living room, there it was, those tapes there, and so but we had them. Once they were baked, we had them. We were able to release that and stuff. So I figured all that stuff was safe. The demos, all this stuff. I never thought any of that would be an issue that I had to worry about. It turned out I did.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the story that we hear too often, that like it's just too easy to take advantage of somebody who might be dealing with addiction, or just, frankly, a lot of artists. One of the things that makes we definitely know over the course of history is that people who are basically good or great artists typically aren't good at the business side of stuff, for lack of a better term. That's kind of like you almost have to be lucky and fall in the lap of somebody that you can trust. And
when there's an attitude and a general consensus where rumors become facts, like the everything's always coming up roses, like the Arista roses and things like that. None of that shit is with the actual reasons for anything, but you just get this reputation and this like, I don't deserve this. I deserve what's happening here. I deserve it all. But in all actuality, when it came down to my job, every performance, every fucking record, every song, everything, I've delivered 100%. I have Babe Ruth batting average, you're better. And, it's just the other stuff, like, the personal issues and things like that. Well, that's never affected the fans' perception of Scott Weiland or, Janis Joplin or or any of these people, Led Zeppelin, all Aerosmith, all these guys, that's not an issue. That's I mean, if anything, that attracts people, that attracts fans. They want to hear that shit. It makes it more interesting. I mean, not saying I'm not for letting myself off the hook for all those things, but to the point of where internally that's all being used against me is like I'm ruining things, and I'm
that's not a justification for taking away something you created.
Exactly. Especially when I created things as well as I did.
I mean, getting arrested for making meth is getting arrested for making meth, not and you no longer own these things that have nothing to do with it.
Well, I didn't actually get arrested.
Well, whatever. I'm referencing the story you mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a warrant, and it's like there was other I had other people where my sister was involved in that, and to get off, there was no evidence or proof of that, and so to get out of that, I would have entailed her, who had finished that whole, paid her debt to society, would have just had a new baby and things like that. Yeah, okay. and so I used the opportunity.
I wasn't trying to paint your story for you. I was merely referencing part of the earlier conversation. Yeah.
But I mean,
you shouldn't lose things you created. You know what I mean? You still created them.
If people want to, there's a lot of rumors and things out there. Well, of course. I mean, a lot of it's true, but there's more to it than just this recluse piece of shit going around that just did all that stuff. There's explanations to it, not justifications, but explanations. So there's more than meets the eye to that. And that's why I've never, like I told you before we started this, there's nothing, you can ask me anything, because there's nothing, there's nothing that I have to hide. It's all I can do. What, if anything, I can, make it people aware of some things that they weren't necessarily aware of. And that's what makes it so hard when you're going out to right some wrongs and to protect your rights and to fucking get your integrity back and your name that's been dragged through all the mud and stuff, that when it's on such a large scale where rumor becomes fact, because I'm not physically out there, is like somebody else is out there. And just the rumor builds, and you can, you can tell one guy one thing, and that, how that spreads when you got online now, what I mean? Everything's, like I said in another one, you could cheat on your old lady and she knows about it before you remember you did anything. You know what I mean? It's like, this is craziness, but it was, and not to be able to afford any kind of legal things. And I want to move forward. I want to go forward, because it's like, if you want this stuff, you're going to have, you need to do it. You need to go through a process of where it's right. It's right and wrong. It's cowboys and Indians here. And to do that stuff. And then, but to trying to move forward, and every penny you got is going into making new stuff and shit like that. And to obtaining legal and things like that, where you think, well, hey, maybe can't we just discuss this? Well, that wasn't discussable. So, I blasted it out there. And through that, I acquired a lot of cool things. I acquired a great management. Acquiring a new band, acquiring a legal help, and a street team of fans. And I pulled down a lot of those sites that were, Enough's Enough now and then and stuff like that. I'm like, there's no now and then. There's one Enough's Enough. What's going on now is not Enough's Enough. I don't consider that's not the same thing. And so I had all that shit pulled down, and there's censoring and stuff going on. Like, don't stick up for Donnie. Don't do this or that, and start arguments. Otherwise, you'll be deleted. And like you are over in that camp, you say something. There's lifelong fans that have been with us for 30 years that say anything, like, express feelings or thoughts on something, you're deleted. You're gone. You're banned. And never mention rubber noses or balloon animals over there. I've been banned from that thing for 3.5, 4, 5 years. You know what I mean? And but I mean, that's all of that shit. I just said one day, you know what? This ends today. This fucking shit ends today. And, you know, I'm going to start with the same thing that built that band reputation was the fans and the people out there that love it and know it. And I said, well, let's have them right this wrong. It's you know, it's like at the end of the movie, it's the guy that wears the white hat. He might have a bullet arm and a sling, this and that, but all the bad guys are dead. And so is their gang and everything like that. And everyone's happy they're dead.
Who are the bad guys?
Yeah, and I'm not saying that maybe I'm not the 100% good guy, but I'm definitely not the bad guy. You know, and anything I was the bad guy, I still delivered.
Well, let me ask you this, Donnie. During all that kind of stuff that you kind of described, I'm guessing there was a point where it felt like you're almost being penalized for trying to get healthy.
Some of the fans are telling me, and there's different people that a lot of them. You know, it's not just the stuff where you need to get back together with your brother, and you need to start making more of that stuff. Like, so in other words, beautiful things and the things that I'm doing on my own. Like, what am I missing here? What's missing here that you're saying this, that I need to do that? Because you don't know the situation, you don't know what was actually happening, you don't know how it was creatively a negative thing for just the creative to begin with, you know, and then, you know, and then it extends to, well, hey man, you're a fuck up. You don't deserve it. He's out there earned it. You know, he's out there been playing and this and that. Like, how does he earn it? How do you earn something, the rights to something that's built on something that I definitely did?
That has to be irritating, right?
Yeah, I won't take away any credibility or credit for, I mean, the guy's probably the best power pop bassist to ever lived in the history of rock and roll. You know what I mean? He's one of the best, and was my partner and contributed to collaborations on a chunk of really great, some of my favorite Enuff Z Nuff songs, you know. But there was a method, there was a process of that where you'd have an idea and I would take it and do the rest, you know, I'd write the rest of the song and all the lyrics and everything. It's like, so, but still there's that collaboration, there's that, you know, going on there. And, you know, it's just, I'm entitled to nothing. You're entitled to this. You know, if I needed to use the Enuff Z Nuff name or something to go out and play live and do business, you know, I would never use the name. But it's the principle of the thing that I'm not allowed to. You know what I mean? Legally not allowed to, and you are. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck that. And the way that you go about acquiring it, you know, that's not, and dissolve the company and dissolve the LLC, which takes away any of my legal power to anything like that, you know.
So it goes back that far when you dissolve the initial, was it Atlantic Records? Like, that's where the name change kind of went to Chip?
No. That's where we went to, we had to get rid of Enuff Z Nuff Inc. because anything that had to do with the business that
how
was
did
as far as
Chip end up with the
Atlantic.
name and you have nothing to say about that?
Well, we, like I said, we started a new corporation called Roving Gypsies that, you know, listed things in the right order of things. You know, I mean, it's like I was the CEO, the president, you know, he was whatever he was, and, you know, treasurer or something like treasurer. What a great idea that was. You know what I mean? but that when that got terminated, which I had no clue that any of that happened. You know what I mean? How do you terminate something where one guy's the CEO and president? You know, it's not a mutiny. It's not a mutiny where the company votes you out and everybody. That's still you're there and you would be in a boardroom where they said, "Hey, we're letting you go," or something like that. You know, and the stockholders and shit. No, you can't do that. And second of all, you can't. You know, it's legal things. There's legal loopholes that don't protect me. Like the amount of time that it took before I started taking action or, you know, it's stuff like that. But that's all, once again, has to deal with having the money to do so. And I'm busy taking my money and making sure that the fans got their fucking pledge. And then not only that, I got stuck with the entire bill of the you know, to record that, all the expenses to record the record, the producer, the studio, all of that shit, you know. And there's no, you know, I took it to the street. That's where I come from, the streets. I take it to the street. If there's somebody broke in the house to come to murder me, I still ain't calling the police. You know what I mean? I'm not calling the police because somehow I'm in trouble. You know what I mean? And law and legally, you know, all those loopholes that shit drags on forever. And can't, you know, it's not practical. There's not enough anything really to speak of whatsoever until, like, I just recently lent out the downloads of my entire catalog from 1985. Which
I was going to ask about that. Carry on.
All the Enuff Z Nuff, all of my solo stuff, everything that my brand, you know, I've branded it. You know, if you hear me singing it,
your music.
Yeah, if you hear me singing it, I pretty much wrote it. You know what I mean? And so I figured, well, I was originally going to put that on a flash drive and then distribute that for like $100 for 20 records of shit. I figured that's a good deal. And I had all kinds of issues with that, with a label helping or distributor going to help do that. But I figured that plan was good because all these redistribution deals and all these label deals and all these things, when you get a fucking $10,000 advance or $20,000 or $50,000 advance, there's games that can be played and hide behind this and that, and then eventually some label just dissolves or something like that. And who do you go to? So I figured something like that. Well, then they'll present themselves. They'll flush themselves out of the bushes. It's like, oh, I'm glad that you come to me because I've been looking for you. You know what I mean? And but
that was very smart.
Yeah, well, then in the end, like I said, these songs ain't mine. They're not his. They're not definitely not these piece of shit fucking distributors and guys like that. They're not saying that they're all that. It's just, but you know, deals that have been done without my knowledge. There's deals, there's redistribution, there's everything that's been re-released is not just from some label. It's like Slash Stony Records, which is Chip's personal little label, his little organization. It's like, this isn't ethical. This isn't good business wise. This isn't you know, anything that should even be legal, you know. And you know, there's some things that's now is that violated federal copyright law. You know what I mean? So these things are all being addressed now, and this stuff is not something that I even want to pursue that way. I want I want negotiations of somebody coming this and handling all of this stuff, right, all the way to the point of, you're going to continue to use this name, you're going to continue to put records out as the same name as this body of really integral work that's got, you know, that's you know, I made a policy that I will, every time in my next venture, I'm going to release something that's in the next evolution, that's the next step, that's as good or better than the last stuff, you know. And then all of a sudden that's compromised and you know, with one little Hershey squirt of a fucking you know, just put in a goddamn same label, and I was like, I'm even extending it out there. If this is continuing to go on, first of all, we got to write these legalities and this ethical shit, and second of all, if you want to continue doing that, then I will contribute to the writing and if I even maybe possibly appear on it to some extent, is okay. You know, and don't even think about going back into all the hundreds of early demos and stuff like that, because that's not, you know, that ain't gonna happen either, because that stuff is now protected. And but I mean, if you're gonna continue to do this, I do believe that you need to go with the same process and the same integrity that it stands for, because I can do that easily. I mean, I write a lot of stuff. It's like, and it's all still great stuff, and I'm still singing, and I'm doing better than I've ever been as far as that goes. So it's not that much effort or that much work for me. You know, it's even so much as singing a song on it or something, because that original deal with Frontier that they got, where I agreed to let him do that, started with that Clown's Lounge record, which was old demos basically, with a couple of things he threw on there that are new.
So you knew that was going to happen, even the material they were going to use, or?
Well, it was going to happen whether I wanted it to or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that. I know how that thing goes. And so when I agreed to that, the contract was for three options records to be picked up at the next one and this and that. And on that thing stated, it's with me singing and writing.
Okay.
You know, and so Clown's Lounge is still me singing and writing.
It's just not current.
It's just old stuff. And if there's old stuff that didn't get released on records, meant that I felt that there was something about it that wasn't ready, that wasn't wasn't to where I felt that that's as good or worthy of, you know, that's something that needed to be addressed at a later date and maybe possibly honed out or this and that. But I continue to write new stuff and I continue to make new better and better, just like now, you know, and like, for example, I'm releasing another record on the next couple of months. It's
this summer, I'm told.
Yeah, it's going to be, there's two brand new big productions, which are really, people are going to really, really fucking love. And then there's some songs in demo version, and my demos are definitely listenable. I don't just sit there with an acoustic guitar and go, rah, 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 keep an idea. You know, I want to hear these songs. And so there's demos from the actual Beautiful Things record of these original songs. They're in the original form of, you know, a lot of times the day they were written, you know, and so they sound really good and they're cool. But there's two new productions. There's also a couple of songs that didn't fit on that record that kind of drop out the bottom when you start adding more on top. You know what I mean? That you can consider a better or fit more. It's not better or worse. It's like this fits what's going in there more. You know,
you're looking at kind of the whole picture while you're doing it, and
so you're getting half a record. And my plan was to no more CDs. You know what I mean? It's not practical. It costs too much to make them. You got to go through a thing, and you got to all this other stuff. And you know, when people the download, which is what anybody does anyway, they just download it and somebody grabs it from some other place. And I figure, well, digital downloads, you know, a single at a time, which I hate the idea of that because I've got 25, 30 songs chomping at the bit right now that are sitting in you know, demo state that have grown. And some of them people think, well, Donnie, you know, the thing when you did it with Enuff Z Nuff, it's heavier and this and that. Well, I've got heavier stuff too. That record, Beautiful Things, didn't lend itself to that sound. It was you know, the bulk of the new songs when I started writing them were not heavy. And so that's why that record was completed in the way that it was done. There was one song, say, just for example, that we released as Easy N. It was called Troublemaker. Me, Johnny, and Eric, that were all former members, and got together and recorded it because that was a song it sounded very Enuff Z Nuffy, and it didn't sound like what was going on my record. So we had decided we're not going to put that on the record, although it was a really good song. So, you know, that's just an example of that's heavy as shit as far as Enuff Z Nuff goes. And but you know, I did the heavy stuff too. I wrote all of that stuff. You know what I mean? So the newer stuff, there's a lot of that. It's just I let the song tell me what it wants to be. You know, but it is going to be a release. It is going to be a record. You know, half of it's all brand new. A couple of them are really big production, really good, and you know, there's a couple songs that are really gonna people are gonna, you know, kind of anthemic or whatever. I don't know if that's a word.
Anthemic.
Yeah, but it's also new stuff to an extent, but it's also in support of Beautiful Things. It needs to get that needs. I'm not ready to give up on that. It's too good of a record.
Great record, man.
Yeah, and plus we're launching the new live band and everything, and you know, there's a lot of other stuff going down now.
Let me just push pause just for a second because I only have one last question related to the earlier stuff, and then it's all the stuff you're doing now.
Right.
You sort of touched on it. Does it sound like under the perfect circumstances you would actually be open into rejoining Enuff Z Nuff? Yes or no?
I have reached out for the sake of the fans, for the sake of the fun of doing a handful of shows or a string of shows, a few here, a few in the UK, maybe Japan or something like that. That was just, you know, fell on deaf ears. No, I'm not into that or this and that. And, you know, it all falls along the lines of the personal agenda. I just saw something in I do believe you have something to do with that, Sleaze Rock or something like that.
Oh, sure.
And they just posted something that was a quote saying that there was an offer for a big tour of getting the original act together with Monaco and stuff like that, and that a couple of those members discussed that before even bring it to my knowledge, stating, "Nah, it's not worth another 2 weeks of dealing with Donnie V's fucking bullshit and this and that." Well, first of all, here's what's wrong with that theory. Those two guys, Vic and Chip, those guys, the number one thing is the spotlight and money. You know what I mean? So that's what's shoot a hole in that right there. That just had nothing to do with dealing with my personal bullshit, which I'm been done, with a lot of that. And I'm hard to work with when you're shady. I'm hard to work with when it's not true and it's not doesn't have to do with what it's about. Yes, then I'm hard to work with. And I've been in that situation for years and years and years and years that there was a lot of things that are presented that aren't necessarily for the reasons that people would think they're presented, is more for to be a partner, a team player, something like that. And then to say all those things and say something like that, which is total lie, because I'd be the first one somebody would reach out and say, "Hey, listen, we got an opportunity to go make big money and be big for 2 weeks or something like that." There's no way nobody's going to pass on that. You know what I mean? And it's still, to this day, there's bands that can't work with each other, guys that can't work with each other. Well, you have a separate hotel room. You just ride in a different van. I'll see you on stage, or shit like that. We're not about writing new stuff. It's about a nostalgia trip. But yeah, I reached out to do that. And still to this day, if we get a lot of these things remedied and rectified, I want to love my big brother, quote unquote big brother. I want to love that guy. He's he's done a lot for me in my career. Mostly in the beginning, he had a lot to do with the transformation of just a little, white trashy turd that went fast track to center stage with something big. And he had a lot to do with getting me there to that point, and then things started to, unravel, and things started to, once I got there, I was like, now I want to evolve. Now I want to take it to the next level. I got, like with the next record, strength, and things like that, and keep going and keep going and keep going and
evolve.
And evolve. And this, as an artist, I'm the artist. As an artist, has a different outlook on things than someone who's not necessarily the artist. And that I don't believe that musically or artistically that he's really evolved since then. I don't think that he's really, and his bass playing, if you're not focusing and presenting your strengths, just so to speak, things that you're really strong, your best, then I think you're showing your weaknesses. You know what I mean? And like,
I actually do know what you're meaning, especially in the reference you're saying.
Yeah, so you get that, and you get some of these things rectified, and some of this stuff where I don't feel like I can get some of these dicks out of my ass. You know what I mean? And it's like, when they say bag of dicks, I got like a case of dicks in my ass. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I would definitely. It's for the fans.
Okay.
There's no reason for Enuff Z Nuff to get back together to start making records or anything like that. Like the original situation. I would help to keep some integrity going and stuff like that. But to actually work in that environment or that particular situation again, it's ridiculous for me because I don't need to. I've never needed to. And I own the machine that makes them. I own the Play-Doh pumper. You know what I mean? I just put new Play-Doh in it and pump them out. So yeah, I can move forward artistically in the snap. There's a few things I cannot move forward without, and that just, if they didn't stress me out to the point of where I can't fucking sleep at night some nights thinking, what the fuck? I get something in the, just something, somebody sends me something or I see something or I'm just thinking, and then one day it's like, what the fuck, man. You know, it's like, so in that respect, you can't move on. But I am moving on. I'm all this time that I'm blasting this stuff out. I'm still, that's, you know, I'm multitasking. Those are cigarette breaks. You know what I mean? I'm busy I'm at the helm. I'm fucking doing still, you know, just constantly recording and writing new stuff, which is my favorite thing to do. And so it's not like I'm not moving forward. I'm going to, you know what I mean? And if something looks negative or this and that, well, that's because it's negative. You know what I mean? But it's certainly nothing that I can live with, and unless I absolutely have to. And I just want people to know, at least if anything else, to scrape some of the fucking dog shit off my goddamn name. You know what I mean? And
nothing wrong with sticking up for yourself, Donnie.
Well, yeah, it is what it is. Until it got to the point, you know, very recently, like within the last week, with some of the team that, you know, they kind of got lost.
Whoa, yeah, they actually talked to me a little bit too.
Yeah, lost track of what the principle is here and what the purpose was, and things started getting vicious and very, you know, I'm not out to post memes of, you know, dicks and mouths or something looking like a rat or something like that with rubber noses and shit. That's not my thing. I don't care about that. I'm not looking to do that. You know, I think he does a good enough job of that on his own. You know what I mean? with an unphotoshopped photo. You know what I mean? It's like, where's the thought? Where's the principle? Where's the mentality? And walking out the door like that. You know what I mean? but yeah, that wasn't my. And then I see vicious things, and it's on my behalf, and it's on my name is behind it, and I had to pull and rein that in. I said that, and I take the responsibility for it, and I did. And I got on the same place that I'm saying this other stuff. Yeah. I went on there and I said, you know, I'm sorry that this happened, and I'm ashamed that this happened, and I'm not gonna do that anymore. And I've got to get these other people, because they're passionate. They're passionate about this stuff, and especially in the light of seeing what's actually the actualities of things. These people are pissed off too. You know what I mean? They're pissed off. We've been misled. We've been this and that. We've been on, you know, and they're going to bat for me on my behalf. They're going to bat for the music, for this and that, and just right and wrong. You know, it's right. It's not right versus left. You know what I mean? It's not this over here or this over here. It's right and wrong. You know what I mean? And
I don't want to that. And I think a lot of people do get that you're not really trying to say it's, you know, pick A versus B. Sometimes the one thing is correct and one thing is incorrect. And
right.
Like it's either a 6 or a 9. It's not both. You know, you're not both right.
Yeah, there's some 6 and 9 going over there, I think. But but as you can see, I'm not saying I'm this angel, or I didn't do these things, or I didn't do this or that. I would never do that. Never have. It's, you know what I mean? I'm the first guy, you know, did I start a fire, cooking methamphetamine? I've never been charged with that. could it possibly have happened? Possibly. But, you know,
allegedly.
It wasn't that. No, it was faulty wiring this guy's fucking place.
Oh, hey, I'm just going to
we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, why don't we do this? How many cigarettes do you smoke a day now, Donnie?
Depends on how many interviews I'm doing a day.
Okay.
It depends on how upset I am during the day.
Oh,
you
well, hopefully I didn't get you upset today.
When I'm sitting there and recording and writing and stuff like that, I'm laying tracks and stuff. Obviously, I'm going to smoke less cigarettes, but I will say that my facial recognition on my phone doesn't recognize me without one. I'm serious. I swear to God, it doesn't.
That's awesome.
And that's not a very brilliant guy doing that when you're a singer. It's like I'm dragging my bugle around through by a string through the gravel and it's an amp. So I got to get that under control. But, you know,
well, it's like if it's your last vice, just roll with it.
Yeah, let's say it's my balls in a vice.
It took me a long time to quit cigarettes, and when I did, it was it's been about 6 years now. But
if they didn't look so cool.
No, exactly. I mean, how is vaping taking the place? It looks retarded.
Yeah, we'll see how that turned out.
And by the way, I just said retarded, so now nobody will worry about the things you said.
There you go. See?
Let's talk about what you're doing now. You do have a new album coming out, like you talked about. It sounds like it's going to be a mix of like some demos and some new tracks. I was told the title is going to be The King of Power Pop. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I've.
Well, let me ask you a real quick question. Beautiful Things was a very positive, uplifting record. This is a very bold statement, and you've kind of been pushing yourself out there going, you know what, fuck everybody. Is this going to be a little bit more edgy as far as lyrical content?
You'll just have to find out.
Okay.
Like I said, I mean, half of it is because the label wanted to do a CD, so half of it is to show the rawness of how cool the Beautiful Things songs started. I mean, they were very basic. It was down to 4 or 5 instruments, and
okay.
But I did it all in. And if you hear them, they're like, wow, it's another version. But but everything's already there. You can tell everything's there. But I know people would like that. And what other arena could you present those to somebody? But however. The new stuff, the new big production ones that I'm just finishing now, those, as opposed to just releasing those as a digital download, they'll be on there as well, which they also will be a digital download. But this is this is a record to support the record that poor fucking Beautiful Things that just didn't get it what it
kind of got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, and people that hear that record, like people are saying, I listened to that and I can't take it on my deck. It's great.
Blew me away.
Yeah, thank you. And so I think I'm not ready to give up on that. And we weren't ready to tour to support it and stuff like that yet. And so now we are. And you'll find out my new band very shortly. I got May 23rd is going to be the first date of that.
Cool. Of
the new live band, and it's launching.
That's at Fitzgerald's again?
Yeah, I like that venue, and it is 3 days after Enuff Z Nuff show in Chicago. But I don't think I'm going to worry about that.
This is going to be a full rock band, though. You're saying, or?
Yeah, 5-piece band. 2 really great guitar players. One guy, people are going to be really surprised that this guy is in it.
Steve Vai?
I can't. No, I don't want somebody have Steve Vai. As great as he is, that would be like.
Well, that would surprise people.
Peanut butter and Vaseline sandwich. You know what I mean? That's just not going to happen. It's like
back
Vaseline.
to that giant bag of dicks, right?
We already know how great Vaseline can be, and then that peanut butter is a great thing too. But you put that together, it's
while a dog's barking in the background.
Yeah, and then you got to have V and Vi in the same band. It's like
yeah, too many V's.
Yeah, my dog. That's my mom's dog. I inherited him. His name's Enrique. He looks like a fruit bat. It's like a fat fruit bat. The greatest fucking dog in the world. Cuddles. He smiles. He literally has an ear to ear. I mean, people say their dog smiles. You've never seen a smiling dog like you've seen this motherfucker. It's fucking hilarious. It's so adorable. But yeah, that's him barking.
I brought that up. I'm sorry. There's no way you would know, but we have a track record of our interviews. There ends up being a dog at some point barking or doing something. It's kind of funny.
Well, a lot of them, maybe it's their girlfriend.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
Just sounds like barking. After a while.
You gave me some great marriage advice last time we talked. I'm still married, by the way.
Good for you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to hear that. I hope if that works, dude, if that works out for you, if you have someone for the right things where it can't be just physical attraction. It can't be this and that. It has to be a mating of the souls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it could be men, could be 2 men, could be this and that, whatever it is, it's a mating of the souls. And if that's your yin and your yang, that's when something's going to, I'm in a relationship right now where it's a crazy relationship. I don't know what to call it, but it's the healthiest relationship I've ever been in my life, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and it's also given me the opportunity and afford me the spirituality and the physical, everything to be able to rise up from the dust of what was left of me and a work in salvage to a work in progress. You know what I mean?
I do, and I got to tell you, Donnie, I know you've had kind of a checkered past. I'm familiar with your history. Just the chance that we're talking about, like I said, about
checkered.
a year and a half apart.
I like checkered. I'm going to use that from now on. That was checkered. That was just checkers.
I'm just saying, I'm happy that you still seem to be on a good path, and you sound good, and you sound happy, and kind of like in a good place. Anyway, you're an artist, a fabric of the timeline of the '80s and the '90s. So I think people definitely want more of that.
I want to be an artist of not put myself, say I'm as good or this and that, but like. Are artists like Tom Petty or something like that, where there's the times don't affect you, and you are your own niche, and you keep going until my heart stops beating is the day, and then I'll have left another bunch of shit that'll keep going too. And like the guy that does Dio's holograms, the show, stuff like that, has reached out. Yeah, I don't know. We haven't
Donnie Vie hologram.
Yeah, we haven't really discussed it yet, but I was like, I imagine it would probably be in the light of maybe Derek Frigo, maybe having a full reunion. But I was like, my question is, how many guys can you make? How many guys can you do at a time? And also there's something that other artists should think about is of doing your own while you're alive, where they don't have to work with what they've got. You can have something.
You're talking about suit. Paul Stanley, aren't you?
No, I'm talking about me. Talking about me. I'll wear the Velcro tennis balls all over me in a green suit. Just don't put that picture out of me because I got a couple of rolls now. I don't look good in
I
don't look good in the bat suit anymore. You know what I mean?
Okay. Aaron wanted me to make sure I also mention your website, DonnieVie.com. I was checking it out while I was waiting for you to call. All sorts of stuff there. You can download all your music. You can buy the records, all that good stuff. Hopefully you get some of that money. I'm not sure that you do at this point. But
it's something that might be funny to do. I just it's surprising what you can find that you can buy. And I just bought chipsenuff.com. I swear to God, I just bought that. I said, "Well, that's available." I said, "Well, I'll take that."
One of my scratched.
Do you take PayPal?
One of my questions that I didn't get I had a joke kind of prepared, but there was never a good time to throw it out there. But I was like, instead of touring as Enuff Z Nuff, maybe you just go out and call your band Chips Enough. But
well, if you click on chipsenuff.com, it comes back to
exactly. It's perfect.
The first thing you see is the St. Joe County Dope Wars, which is like some little side thing that I do, and it's where we cover old classic things and stuff with my own spin on it, my own version of it, of like because I love doing that too. It sharpens my skills. It keeps me going and stuff, and it's like the song is already written, so now I just everything else, my other skills that I get to exercise and show. Like I just did one of Stevie Wonder, Living in the City, and I thought it was fucking great, and but that's what that is. So yeah, a lot of people think they see the cartoons, they see the Lee Stokes illustrations, and a lot of people think that might be Guilt and Shame, which was my little country thing I did with my nephew, which is very inappropriate fucking country to hillbilly diddlies, that are really fucking funny, but people might think that, but you click on chipsenuff.com. There's a St. Joe County Dope Wars. But this is something that that I wouldn't. What do I need to keep that for? I was I give that for a Christmas present. Just let's fucking rectify this other bullshit. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to use the name Enuff Z Nuff. I'll use the font for my name. You see the font because brand name. It tracks attention, and there's a lot of people. The lion's share of the fans and people that loved, the early records and stuff. They thought we died in a plane crash. But they'll see that font, which as opposed to a lot of people. Who the fuck is Donnie Vie? And you got to look at it, and then you see closely underneath it in the fine print. The singer-songwriter of Enuff Z Nuff or something like that. Yeah. Well, you need something to draw it in. And, it's like, if I wanted to use that goddamn name, I would, fucking good luck to you. Fucking, you can't get fucking, shrimp out of a scallop. They're still both blue. You know what I mean? And, and so, yeah, that's brand name something is something to be said about that, you know. And one guy plays the Monsters of Rock, the other guy's playing on the SS Minnow. You know what I mean? And that's just not none of that.
You've never got an opportunity to play on the Monsters of Rock cruise, even as Donnie Vie?
Yeah, no, I did one. I did one with Enuff Z Nuff.
Okay.
And, it was great. I had a great time on that. I went up and played with Spike and the Choir Boys, and it was great. It was a fantastic thing. I'd like to go out and do those things. We'll see what happens with that, because my band is going to be a rock band. The shows are going to be, they're going to have a lot of the new stuff, but they're going to have a lot of the old stuff, and there's going to be a lot of the brought down, like where I'm just sitting there with a piano and I'm not using drum risers on the stage anymore. I'm using that drum riser out in the middle of the room, and I'm sitting out there with my piano and stuff like that. It's gonna be fucking cool. And the show at Fitzgerald's is also, it's gonna be, because it's close to my birthday. Not only my birthday, I want to celebrate everyone that's there's birthday. Everyone in every fan's birthday, belated or early, or it's gonna be a big birthday bash, and along with all the cake and the everything you fucking, you know what I mean?
You're going to sing happy birthday to each person individually? Like, just you get a sheet of names as they check in?
How the fuck am I going to do that in fucking 2.5 hours? But
everybody just settle down. We have to sing happy birthday 423 times.
To you. You moved. I pointed. Yeah, you got 2 happy birthdays. You moved. I seen you over there. It's like, no, you can't physically
you
do
that.
Like,
looking at the list, we have 16 Kathys here tonight. Can we just cover all Kathys with one version?
and I'll be Kathy's clown.
Yeah. Well, did we miss anything, Donnie? You gave me more than I needed.
I don't think so. I don't think we did. Well, you know what? You got my number now. Yeah. I got yours. Anything that comes up or something, I just ask that you be fair and you be, unbiased, and you tell it like it is, and like, if as long as, and then I'll I don't, there's some publications that the only thing it'll say is Donnie Vie burns down fucking house with making methamphetamine, out of this interview or something like that.
Well, we don't have any control over that, to be honest with you. But I mean, as far as what we talk about, I mean, it's just this interview. I mean,
well, I hope you have control over this interview.
Well, no, but Blabbermouth can grab it. They do it all the time, where they throw up a little snippet or something, and we don't get to pick the headline. Well,
it's like, well, people, as long as there's people can hear this and other interviews and stuff like that, they want to put that, I mean, there's meth makers are people too. They might be fans too, and they'll see that. It's like, get a whole new crowd, shaking
laugh,
Pepsi bottles.
But you're so right, honestly. I mean, I remember the first time I met a drug dealer, I felt like lied to by television. I was like, well, this guy probably would help me change a tire,
Well, yeah, probably.
He also deals drugs. So
right. And then you maybe sell you a fucking something looks like a snow tire made of crack. I mean, you never know what the fuck. Those days are over, though, man. It's like, yeah, the only way that was possible for me was the way it happened. It's like these meetings and stuff like that. I kind of just sat in those playing Angry Birds, watching the clock and stuff. It's like, it was that my spirit was sick and tired of all of that. And it was 50 years in the makings. And, and you just got to get to it the way that I did. And hopefully people don't give up on their loved ones and their this and that, because nobody ever sets out he wakes up one day and, you know what? I want to fuck everything up, man. I want to fuck you over. I want to fuck your shit up. I want to fuck my shit up. I want to go to jail. I want to be disowned and just from everything, ostracized. And nobody ever does that. And it's a hard thing to battle back from, and however it takes. But it's like I said, the best thing I can say is play further into the movie. Like I said, just don't give up on these people. It's like if somebody's drowning, and if you're close enough to this guy drowning, he's going to reach out and grab at you and possibly drag you underwater too. You get loose and you get back to shore. And, you're sad as this guy sinks to the bottom and he's done, he's gone, but if you see this motherfucker, if you could throw him life rafts, eventually guys got to do it themselves. They got to do it themselves. You can't stay like that. You can't do anything in your life just because somebody else wants you to do it or for this reason. And when they do show back up, they do show their faces again, you're like, be happy to see them. Like, we thought you were gone, it's like, oh my God, and just remember that if you were close enough that they were able to reach out and pull you down with them, that means you were close enough. You know what I mean? So remember that, remember who they were. And like a lot of these rehabs and stuff that I was in, these people, when they were coming out of this shit, what I noticed were maybe not your average Joe. These are exceptional people. These are guys that had a lot to offer. And I was like, maybe there's a connection to a lot of that stuff that it's just, you just wake up one day and it's not good enough just to wake up like you see these guys driving around with their fancy car insurance, you know what I mean? And, like a good brand of cigarettes and stuff. Oh, okay, Hollywood. Okay, well, look at you, Hollywood. You got life insurance. Yeah, you got a mailbox. It's stuff like that. It's like,
I think a little compassion goes a long way. And
just
like you said, you don't want to get drugged down and get drowned at the same time. You don't want to forget we're talking about. Man, we all have problems, man.
And remember, if you lose somebody to it, instead of just like, beating yourself up over that or this and that, like this isn't our decisions to make. I believe there's a higher energy source. We come from it. We go back to it. Energy isn't born. It doesn't die. I've got a peek at the other side because I did one of my desks went to, you got a peek at something. I've also seen the dark side of things on firsthand of an actual physical entity that was crazy shit. And I found more dead bodies than anybody should ever have to find. And found one guy crossbowed himself to the wall. You mean there's commitment.
That takes some effort. Yeah.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall watching that whole process go down. How'd you, with the note through it? It got the note through the arrow. He crossbowed himself. It's like, what the fuck? Is some commitment there, man? But but you lose somebody. It's not, if you did everything you can and this and that, sometimes bad things happen. You can, in hindsight, you can see sometimes for good reasons. He didn't die in vain. Something somewhere down the line happened that our higher energy gave. There was maybe some purpose or something preordained in that. Who knows? But it's a person has to do that themselves. And you can't blame yourself. I'm sure everybody gave everything they had before the giving up. But just don't give up.
Yeah.
You can just take
that's the message there. Just
get yourself far enough away so you're not going to bring you down too. You know what I mean? But don't give up and be glad if there's have hope that you'll see them again in who they are and in the light of who they are and their energy and but don't beat yourself up. Don't it wasn't your fault. It might not necessarily been their fault. It's just they weren't strong enough to swim back. Now I've swam back from 2 miles out with 2 bowling balls taped to my legs, 1 arm behind my back, and sharks taking chunks out of me, and I made it. So impossible's not off the table.
Then I'm questioning whether you have love handles or not. Then you have to be in killer shape if you did that. But
dude, you'd be madly in love with me right now. I got a couple of things to grab on. It's more of the thing out in the front. It's more of the thing that's out in front. It's not on the sides. It's out in front. It's I could set my ashtray on.
You're not that much older than me. I got the same thing going on here. But Donnie, I really appreciate talking to you. I love it every time. You're always candid and honest. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that we had to talk, and thank you for thinking of me.
Eastern Commerce gonna get you.